Hello, my name is Yeji, otherwise known as ANdmadeco, here on YouTube and on Instagram. Today I have a regular episode of my finished objects, works in progress, as well as a couple of acquisitions at the end. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that the Prospect Pullover by Tori Yu is released today on September 20th, the day this video goes out. And so if you are interested in the pattern, I highly recommend it. I have a project vlog all about me making the Prospect Pullover if you are interested in watching the process. The pattern is size inclusive and I really enjoyed making it. The fit is amazing, the drape is amazing, and if you are making it, I highly recommend giving it a block before making any judgments about it because it just completely blocks out beautifully. But I really enjoyed making this pattern. If you are interested in it, it is released today. I'm also happy to report that all of the winners from my giveaway, from my 2,000 subscriber giveaway, have been contacted and everybody has since received their gift, and I'm just really happy that it's gotten to everybody safely, even to one of the winners in Canada. I know that there is some noise going on outside. I think people are doing gardening and such, so hopefully I could reduce that noise and the mic helps, but if there is some ambient noise, I'm really sorry about it. Now let's get into finished objects, and the first finished object that I don't have here with me, and it is a vest. It's the Harper Vest by Sandisgarn, and this was a sample knit for Tea Cozy Yarn Shop for Emily of Tea Cozy Yarn Shop. Thank you again. And I made this with the Sandisgarn yarn Borsted Alpaca. It is a Sandisgarn pattern. The pattern, however, doesn't suggest Borsted Alpaca. It's a yarn that Emily substituted in. And I know I've gotten this question, but you are able to purchase the pattern even if you substitute a different Sandisgarn yarn from at least Tea Cozy Yarn Shop that I know of. So if you are ever interested in a pattern and the pattern doesn't use the yarn that you'd like, you could always substitute the yarn in. Saying all of that, I made the Harper Vest by Sandisgarn for Tea Cozy Yarn Shop, and I made it in a size large. I did go up a needle size to a 5.5mm needle instead of the recommended 5mm needle because it is on a 15 stitch gauge, and I knew that with swatching and with 15 stitch gauge I would need a larger needle size. I thought I might have to go up to a 6mm needle, but thankfully a 5.5 sufficed. And the Borsted Alpaca is 96% alpaca, 4% nylon. It is a worsted weight yarn and it is quite thick. The strand of nylon going through it is not super thick, but with all of the fluff from the alpaca, it does make it quite a thick yarn. For this vest, I used 4.5 skeins of the Borsted Alpaca. It comes in 50 gram skeins, so I didn't need too much. It was a very light vest. It was under 250 grams. And it also, the color I used was 5811 Arctic Ice, and it's a very pretty light blue color. My finished object photo doesn't have any buttons because I wasn't given buttons to place in the vest. However, if you do go visit Tea Cozy Yarn Shop, it does now have buttons on it. And one of the things I want to point out is that the buttons on the Sandisgarn pattern in the booklet, I think it's fake because the buttons are quite large compared to the buttonholes. I don't know, the buttons that I think Emily put into the Harper Vest to showcase at Tea Cozy are quite large as well, and I think she was able to get it through because you're able to kind of finagle it through. However, I'm not sure how useful it will be for everyday wear. So if you are making this vest, I would definitely recommend getting buttons after making the vest. One of the things that I was very surprised by, pleasantly surprised by, is that Sandisgarn patterns are now, the newer ones at least, are mostly size inclusive. And this pattern goes from 106 centimeters to 159 centimeters, and that makes it go from around 41 inches to 62.5 inches. I really enjoyed making this vest because it was a vest. It just goes by really quickly, especially on the larger gauge with the 5.5mm needles. The back is all double moss stitch and the front has really beautiful cables, very striking. I think it's very effective for the amount of cabling you're doing, which is not many at all, because there are smaller cables down the edges as well as one large cable that twists in the front, and I think that it's very beautiful, especially with the Borsted Alpaca. It was really nice to do cabling because I didn't need a cable needle because of the yarn. The yarn was so sticky that I could just move around my stitches without having to worry that my stitches would get dropped. Even when I messed up in some parts, it was easy enough to ladder down and fix the cabling without having a separate cable needle or just having any issues doing that because the yarn was, again, so sticky. And Tea Cozy Yarn Shop is having their annual Vest Friends knit alongs or make along. So for that, the hashtag is TC Vest Friends 25. And Emily from the Botanical Knitter, she's also having her October Vest Mal. And so there are two vest pattern make-alongs, vest make-alongs that are both knit and crochet. For Emily's, it's also weave and sew that I know of currently happening. So if you do have a vest on your fall to knit list, then I would highly recommend joining these make-alongs because I think it's really fun to be a part of it and also see what other people are tagged in for the vest that they create. And my next finished object is what I'm currently wearing, and this is the Stripe Overload Cardi by Spectacle Strick, who is Mia Furring, and I think that's how you pronounce her name. Again, I'm not 100% sure, but I knit this with my friend June. I buddy knit it with my friend June at june.knits on Instagram, and I was very much inspired. 100% knit fluous by my friend Stella at Milk Enthusiast, also on Instagram. They don't have YouTube pages, but their Instagram, it's public, and they both create very beautiful projects. For my Stripe Overload Cardi, I knit a size medium on the recommended needle, which is a US 8, a 5mm for the body, and a US 6, a 4mm for the collar as well as the hems. And I'm so happy with how this turned out. It's quite warm to be wearing it today because I think today it started off at around 14 degrees, but it's going up all the way to 21 degrees. And I'll have the Fahrenheit listed. I think 21 degrees is something like 78 degrees Fahrenheit, if I'm not wrong. But this week it also went up to 80 degrees. So we're definitely getting our second wind of summer here in Seattle, but the leaves have started changing. So it definitely feels like fall, especially in the mornings and in the evenings. Before I talk too much about this pattern, I will also stand up to show you what it looks like. So this pattern does come with a lot of buttons. There are 8 buttons for my size for medium. I think until large there are 8 buttons, and then the larger sizes have 9 buttons if I'm not wrong. And the striping continues all the way into the button band as well as the hems. And for the hems, there are Italian bind offs, so it's all very continuous. It looks really good in my opinion. And so I'll turn around. It looks like this in the back. And one of the major selling points of this cardigan for me was the striping into the collar as well as the larger collar. I really enjoy that there are decreases in the collar that make it kind of droop down. It's all knit seamlessly top down, starting from the collar to the hem, and then you do your sleeves. Because it's a raglan, you also place your sleeves on hold, so there are no picking up stitches except for when you do your backward clasps on under the arms. In terms of construction, it's very simple. It's no fuss, except for the fact that the color changing happens at the back of the body because it makes it neater, as well as there's no real, because knitting is a spiral, there's no unevenness at the front in that case. And so I'll show you what it looks like and the jog that I have. So there's color changing here. So I have a slight jog here all the way up into the back here. I think the way the color changing was done was super smart, and I could have done a jogless stripe method. I chose not to because I wanted this to be no fuss. And so I'll introduce the yarns that I was using first. Thank you once again to my friend Betsy for this bag. I just kept my project entirely in this bag. When it got too big, I just carried the project and this bag separately, and it was perfect for my case because I knit on this mainly at home. And the yarn I use for this is Blue Sky Fibers Woolstock Worsted held with Sanduscar and Tinsilk Mohair together for each of the colors. So I had a total of 4 yarns going into this project. The Blue Sky Fibers Woolstock Worsted, this color is 1312 Driftwood, and the Sanduscar and Tinsilk Mohair is 3021 Light Beige. And the darker blue color I used is 1317 in the Woolstock Worsted Midnight Sea, as well as 5581 in the Deep Marine for the Sanduscar and Tinsilk Mohair. And I'm just realizing that the Arctic Ice color I use for the Harper Vest is 5811, and this is 5581. And the colors kind of get confusing, I think, but I do enjoy that they do actually have names when I go onto different websites. So you could either search it up by the name or by the numbers, and they should result in the same color. So I knit the size medium after I tried on my friend Stella's, and I really enjoyed the amount of ease it has on me because I plan on wearing this as a jacket. I don't plan on wearing a jacket on top of this on most days in Seattle because it doesn't get too cold here. Right now I have a long sleeve shirt underneath and it is quite warm. And I really enjoyed that this cardigan also didn't take that much yarn. So for my Sandscorn Tin Silk Mohair, for the beige color, I only needed 2 skeins. And for the dark blue color, I needed a bit more than 2. I think I needed around 2.2 skeins. And the same thing happened for the Woolstock Worsted, which is a worsted weight yarn, but I only needed less than 200 grams of each of the colors. So I think it's a combination of the large gauge as well as it being striped that made it not take as much yarn. And it also went by so quickly because of the large gauge as well as because of the color changing that I mentioned before. So because you're changing colors in the middle of the row, you want to finish the row to get to the end of the row so that you don't have drop stitches if you decide to leave your project. However, then that makes you also want to get to the middle of the row again to change the colors and have that finality in that color, which makes you then want to get to the end of the row and so on. So I really enjoyed this project. I thought it flew by. It went by so quickly. I think calculating the number of days I actively worked on it, it was maybe around a week. And my friend June that I buddy knit this with, also she said that it didn't take her much time at all, and she's now done her project as well. So I think for both of us it took less than maybe around 2.5 weeks or 3 weeks with all of the days that we had in between that we didn't work on this project. So if you are considering working on this project, I highly recommend you do so. It's a project where you could definitely start now and finish by the end of fall. The major drawback of this cardigan pattern is that it is not size inclusive. It only goes from 100 to 140 centimeter bust, and I think that's the final measurement because there is no recommended ease or anything on the pattern itself, and the measurements for that, I think in inches, is around 39 to 55 inches. So it is lacking a good 5 inches. It is a raglan construction, so you could definitely increase the raglan or the number of increases that you do, but then you might need to recalculate some of the arm depth as well as the buttonholes if you do it in that way, because it is quite a prescriptive pattern. However, if it is something that you're interested in, I wouldn't set you against it. And I think that it is a great pattern. It's just that I wish it was more size inclusive. I think especially with the color changing happening in the middle of the row as well as this collar detail, it makes it very striking, it makes it very unique. And so I was not able to find an alternative. However, if you know of an alternative pattern that other people in the comments could also look at, then please let me know of a size inclusive pattern that also has the same striping details. And I mean, I guess a collar is something that you could also adjust and add on, but I wish that this pattern, all to say, I wish that this pattern was more size inclusive. And the button size that I ended up using for this pattern is 20 millimeters, which I think is 3/4 of an inch. And I had smaller buttons that I bought from Tea Cozy that I really liked. They're Scossel. I'll have a flash image of it. The video I have of it is not very long, but it was dark blue, and I really like the dark blue, which is why I ended up going for a dark blue one on this as well. And I made it slightly smaller because the brown ones that I bought previously that I think were 23 millimeters were slightly too big. I gave the smaller ones to June. I think those were probably 15 millimeter buttons because June did have a shorter row gauge, or she does have a shorter row gauge, so I think they will fit her buttonholes. However, if I was to put it in my cardigan, then it definitely would just keep opening up or loosening as my buttonholes are larger because of my larger row gauge. Overall, I'm so happy with how this cardigan looks and feels. It feels very slinky. There is a little bit of a weight to it because it does come in at, I think, around 490 grams with the buttons, but I do really enjoy just the whole fit of it and how it feels on my body, although it is very warm right now, as I've mentioned before. If you are thinking of making a cardigan this season in the fall, winter, I would definitely like to make more cardigans. But if you are thinking of making a cardigan, then my friend Stephanie at Edible Thoughts Makes is also having her make along. It's hashtag make all the cardigans MAL 2025 on Instagram. And so I highly encourage you to join that. And I always love watching or looking at Stephanie's stories to see what other people have made, as she does share from that hashtag. My last finished object is not a garment, but rather a gnome, and this is Professor Fungi by Sarah Shira. So this is not a part of her Gnomes of Grimplewood book, like all of the noodles that are back there and the one naughty. This is just a separate pattern on its own, and it is quite a large gnome. So this is all done in fingering weight, and I'll introduce the yarn first. The main yarn that I use for Professor Fungi is Knitpicks Palette, and this is a fingering weight yarn that is a 2-ply. It's 100% Peruvian wool, and I've used this for accessories before. I really like it. The main color I used, which is right here, is almond, and then the 2 contrasting colors I used, or 2 of 3 contrasting colors I used, is cream as well as autumn heather, and I thought that they were really beautiful. And with this yarn, the cap, I also maybe wanted to use these colors in hazelnut or brown sugar as the cap. However, when I was trying it, it seemed like there wasn't enough of a contrast, as well as I wanted something a little more red for the head. And since we're also introducing project bags, I love my Rose in the Wren tulip bag still. I know that she has other patterns out now, so I will also definitely link Rose in the Wren, but the one from Betsy is just a gift. She doesn't sell them, but Rose in the Wren, I highly recommend her bags. So my Professor Fungi, as you can see, has a redder cap, and this is actually stolen from my acquisition portion that I will introduce. But this is the Hairst color from Jamieson's of Shetland Spindrift in the color Hairst, which is a specific color that they made for Gudrun Johnston for her Hairst tap hood. But I thought that it was a perfect red, and I thought I would get away with stealing the little bit I used for this. So we'll talk about that in the acquisitions. But this gnome is a lot of knitting. I think that it's not that apparent. I'll compare it with the gnome that I've already made before. So comparing it with the gnome that I make regularly, this is fingering held double. So I made it with a US 3, a 3.25 millimeter needle. The Professor Fungi I made with a US 1, 2.25 millimeter needle, and it's all fingering weight yarn. So this took me a good 3 days to make, and it was just a lot of knitting, I think, there's quite a bit of stuffing in here too, which we'll get into, but compared to just a regular gnome that I make with a few increases, this had increases, decreases, some short row to lift the face, and it also had some mosaic color work as well as a little bit of bobbling. So I'm not sure if you can tell all of the details, but one thing that I did omit from this was the basket, because at that point in the game, I was already so tired of making the gnome that I decided not to make the basket, and I think that he'll be fine without the basket. This will be actually a gift for my sister's mother-in-law in Hawaii, so she loves gnomes, so I'm really excited to give this to her because she also loves mushrooms, and that's the whole reason I decided to make Professor Fungi. So this gnome also doesn't take that much yarn. The main color that I used for the almond, that was the most at 12 grams of yarn. And then the cream color as well as the autumn heather color, I only used 5 grams each. And the cap, I think I only used 7 grams. So even the gills, I didn't do the I-cord. There's a little I-cord knob at the top, but I kind of like the flat look of just the mushroom top. So that's what I decided to do. And I love all of the details, all of the ribbing details here. And I think that the spiral beard is also so cute, and it's just a very cute gnome along with the little feet. It sits very well. So it sits very well. It's not one of those gnomes where I have to lean it against anything or just slam on the table trying to get it to sit. It sits by itself and it's really nice. I think there are glasses that you can get 3D printed or wire made with wire for Professor Fungi from some of these stores. I decided not to do that as well. And so Professor Fungi will just remain like this. So the construction of this gnome is bottom up. It is seamless. It is nice in that way, except for all of the accessories, of course. But you do have to put in something at the bottom. Sarah Shira recommends either cutting out a piece of cardboard, or I ended up using a Play-Doh cap for my daughter's, and I put that at the bottom. Then I put in quite a bit of poly beads, or they're just little plastic pellets that can weigh down your gnome. And that's what I've done for all of my gnomes so far, is to weigh it down so that it won't. I put it in a mesh bag, but I also end up putting it in just because I don't want it to kind of be too light and not stay. And so I put in the poly pellets, and then I put in the stuffing, as well as for the cap, I put in a reusable cap from one of the water bottles that I have that I don't use that often. And so it's in here. It's one of those Starbucks lids kind of thing. So I put that in here. And I think that because it needs so many parts, I don't know that I'll make Professor Fungi anytime soon again, but I think it is a wonderful gnome and I just love all the details like the pearl edges. Sarah does a really good job of walking you through. I think when I first got the pattern and it was 12 pages, it seemed really long, but when you're going through it step by step, it's not long at all, and you're always doing something different. So it's not boring. It's just one of those gnomes where you have to go in with the right expectation, because I went into Professor Fungi not knowing that it was so much larger than the other gnomes that I've been making. So I think I was kind of taken aback in terms of how long it took me to make it. But ultimately, I'm really happy that I did make it, and I think that he looks adorable. So that's all I have for finished objects, and now I'd like to get into works in progress. And I only really have one work in progress, which I think is the reason why having these project videos in terms of the knitting podcast be every 2 to 3 weeks really works for me, is because I am mostly a monogamous knitter, as I've always said, and so it really helps that I have project vlogs, so I'm not showing you something completely new every time. But in terms of, oh, here, I finished the project without showing you the start of the project or even casting on. So I think project vlogs is able to remediate that. And I am really happy with the progress on my current project. It is a project you've seen before and one I've talked about a lot. So I'll just show you what I currently have. So it doesn't look like much right now, but this is the Finch Sweater by Dalbodreh, and I am test knitting this for Dalbodreh. And this is done on a US 6 on 4mm needles, and I am making the size 2. It is a drop shoulder all over half fisherman ribs sweater, and the entire thing is seams. So even the sleeves are knit flat, and I'm not at that point yet. I have just completed the back. I've joined for the front panels, I've joined the left and the right front panels, and I had just completed the collar. So for the collar, I did do a sewn tubular bind off, which I think it looks okay, but it's a 2x2 rib, so it's never as neat as my 1x1 rib, and I think that just has to do with my skill level. But the yarn I'm using for this is very beautiful. This is Kelborn Woolen Scout in DK weight, and it is in the color 412 Navy Heather. This navy is definitely different from the navy I have in my for Woolstock Worsted that I used in my Stripe Overload Cardi. The navy I have in my Stripe Overload Cardi is more of a green marine navy, as it suggests, and the navy that is in this is very much more blue, has more purple in it, it has more red in it, so it turns up more of a striking navy color, and I really like it, and I think it just is a beautiful color. I know that the original Finch sweater, the sample picture, is also a navy, and that's a lighter navy, I think, and so I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but I really do enjoy this color. So this is all over half fisherman's rib, so it is taking a little bit of time. Although it seems like I'm continuously working on it, progress isn't as fast as I expected. And one of the things also is that the length really differs from when I lay it flat to measure versus even if I just hold it up without pulling at it. Gravity kind of just wants to pull it down a little bit, and I think that's what's going to happen with blocking and with wear, is that everything's going to relax a lot more. And so for this, I measured everything based on what it was after when I just held it up, so without any stretching or anything, for the length of the body. And even if it doesn't stretch any more than what it currently is, when I tried it on, I thought that the length was good, so that's where I stopped the back. It's not a project that you can continuously try on and see the exact fit just because it is all seamed at the end, but I think that it is one that you can try it on just because you already have the neck and you can see how long you want it to be. So I'm at the point where I have to do some decreases for the shaping under the arm, and then knit down for the size 1 and 2. There are some decreases. I think size 3 and 4 it's flat, and then I think for the larger sizes it does increase. This is a very inclusive pattern, size inclusive pattern, in that it goes from around 100 centimeters to 196 centimeters, I think. And that means that it goes from around a 40 to a 78 inch bust range with the recommended positive ease range of 12 inches. And I will definitely have enough positive ease in this sweater, especially without any stretching how it's laying now, but with the weight of the sleeves, I can definitely imagine it kind of just stretching out a little bit and making it even more cozy in that aspect. And currently I'm just really enjoying working on this back and forth. And so this project right now is at 2 balls plus the collar. And so I have to add in my third ball to create the bottom. And I think it won't take more than 5 skeins of yarn for my size. I'm really happy with how this is coming along. And the next time I talk to you in October, my next video will probably be October 4th with all the things that I've made in September. This will definitely be a finished object. Next, we'll get into acquisitions, and I don't have too many acquisitions to show you this week. The first one we've already mentioned is from the Shetland Trader, which is Gudrun Johnston and her company. And this is an illustration that her daughter drew for the Harris Tap hood. And I mentioned this last week when I was talking about fall knitting plans, but I did order the kit, the Harris Tap hood kit, which means that I got the exclusive colorway for Gudrun Johnston from Jamieson's Shetland Spindrift. And this is a really nice rusty red, and I think it looks beautiful in a hood. On Professor Fungi as well, but I think it will look beautiful in the hood. So when I got the yarn and I was making Professor Fungi, I was kind of debating on whether I wanted to take from this kit. You get 5 of these 25-gram balls, and that's enough to make 1 hood. So I was wondering if I should take it or if I shouldn't, just because what if I didn't have enough yarn left for the hood? However, when I saw the pattern, I realized that there are 2 options. One has an I-cord drawstring and the other doesn't. And the version that I fell in love with, the reason I bought the kit, is because I want to make the version that doesn't have it. And that is around 90 yards of yarn that you would need for the version with the I-cord versus without. And because I knew I didn't want it, and Professor Fungi also needed around 90 yards for the cap was what was recommended, with of course a buffer on each side. So I decided that it would be safe for me to use this yarn. I hope it will be safe, but I'm really excited to make this hood. I know that my friend Donna from @DonnaRacer or Rasser, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce her last name, but I'll definitely have her linked as well, her Instagram page. And she made the Harris Tap hood. I think she made it with whole scarn super soft, but I loved her version, and she made it for her sister. And so I think that I'll have enough yarn, and once I make this, hopefully it will be a pattern. The hood pattern will be a pattern that I make time and time again. And so I'm very excited to make it. So the kit does come with 5 balls of yarn. I won't need all 5 for the kit, and so I took some for Professor Fungi, long story short. From what I know, Gudrun has sold out of this kit, but if I hear anything different, I'll definitely link it down below. But I am very excited that I was able to get it. And my last acquisition is also something that I wasn't expecting, but anytime I go to Tea Cozy Yarn Shop, I always look at their sale section, and I went for the buttons for this cardigan. This isn't from the sale section, but first I did pick up more of these Susan Bates handy tools, and I picked up 2 more to give one to Maddie and June each, and then I have this. It's only $3, and I found that it comes in super handy. It's very useful because when I was making Professor Fungi again, I had some 3-needle bind off, and I had my notions bag with me. I didn't have my needles with me, and I was using my darning needle to do the 3-needle bind off because I wasn't thinking properly. But then I realized that I had the handy tool, and it was just so much easier doing the 3-needle bind off with an actual needle. So it comes with a knitting needle on one side and a crochet hook on the other, and this is something that you can pick up at Michael's. Michael's, I think, sells it for slightly more expensive, $3.60 maybe, but you could also get it on sale at Michael's. However, when I checked my local Michael's, it was sold out. So I'm really happy I was able to pick up more of these. And Tea Cozy Yarn Shop always has their sale section. Emily did put a post saying that she replenished the sale section, and I went and I checked it out. And I decided to get some Let Lopey yarn that they had. These colors are all discounted. I think they were $3.90 each. I'm not 100% sure on what all of these color names are. I know that this one's 58, and I have around 4 balls of this from making my husband's port jacket. And I have color 1407, as well as this light green, which is 1417, and this red 9414. So I went in thinking that I would get more of this color, which I think is called dark gray heather. And Maddie's also given me some of the Let Lopi that she's bought before to make the Olga jacket or to make a striped jacket in. But after seeing these colors, I think what I might end up doing is making those two main colors, my main colors of my jacket, but striping these colors in as well. Although looking at this, it does look very Christmassy, so maybe I should make a Christmas stocking with this instead. I'm not 100% sure, but I would like to make more jackets out of Let Lopi because I know that a lot of people say that it's very rough and it is not a soft yarn at all, but I find that it holds up well in a jacket format as an outer layer, and it's very cozy in that way. And I also like the density of the fabric when it is in a jacket form, so I think that I might include this in the jacket as well. I'm not 100% set on the exact pattern yet. Currently I'm thinking Olga jacket by Petite Knit, but again, I'm not 100% sure. So this I'll just keep in my collection for now, and then when I get around to making it, probably in the winter sometime, I will definitely see what patterns I compare with this and what I want to do with it exactly then. So that's everything I wanted to talk about in this week's video. For next time I see you on October 4th, I will have a larger acquisition portion, I think, along with everything I made in September, just because my sister is coming back from Scandinavia and she's visited Denmark, Sweden, as well as Norway, and I know that she's picked up quite a bit of yarn for me. I've paid her back for everything, but she's vacuum sealed everything into a duffel bag and she's bringing it back on Tuesday. So if that doesn't come up as a separate video in the next coming week, then it will definitely be a part of my October 4th video. Thank you so much for watching another video, and I will see you again next time. If you can, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you soon. Bye.